After the funeral of his wealthy husband, the wife and her lover went to the bank to withdraw the money, but when they arrived, what dark secrets could a wealthy man have hidden that, even after his death, still control the fate of those who betrayed him? But before continuing with the story, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today, and, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to subscribe. The midday heat enveloped Mexico City like a heavy cloak as Laura, silently adjusting the knot of her black tie, stood beside the tomb of her deceased husband, Daniel, in the city's most exclusive cemetery. The light breeze barely moved the leaves of the trees lining the path to the Gonzalez family mausoleum, to which Daniel had belonged since birth. Next to her, with an expression blending pain and barely concealed anxiety, was Isabel Morales, the woman who had been much more than a friend to Laura in recent years. The two watched the coffin being lowered into the ground, their thoughts not on the loss but on what was to come next. After the last guests paid their respects and began to disperse, Laura and Isabel moved away from the group, searching for a corner where they could talk without being overheard. "Now or never," murmured Isabel, her voice barely rising above the whisper of the wind through the branches. Laura nodded. She knew Isabel was right. The plan had been clear from the beginning. Wait until everyone left after the funeral and then go directly to the bank to make the withdrawal. But there was something in Isabel's eyes, a spark of impatience, perhaps even desperation, that made a feeling of unease settle in Laura's stomach. "The will says I have to wait 6 months before I can touch the money," Laura said, not looking directly at Isabel. "But that doesn't work for us, does it?" Isabel shook her head vehemently. "No, Laura. We need that money now. We can't wait that long. Besides, we have the will in our hands. There's nothing stopping us." Laura took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, trying to calm the nervousness she felt. It was true they had the will, but there was a part of her that couldn't help but feel that something would go wrong. Since Daniel's sudden death, nothing had gone as she expected. Life with him had been comfortable, filled with luxuries and excesses, but always under his shadow. Daniel had been a cunning man, always a step ahead of everyone. How could she be sure his death wasn't part of one of his mind games? "All right," she finally replied. "Let's go now, before anyone realizes what we're planning." They headed to Laura's car, an elegant black sedan that Daniel had given her as a birthday gift. The drive to the bank was tense, marked by long silences and meaningful glances. The sun was beginning to set when they finally arrived at the imposing white marble building of the Central Bank of Mexico. The bank was about to close, but Laura had a special arrangement with the manager, thanks to her connection with Daniel, who had been one of the bank's most valuable clients. Upon entering, they were greeted by the cool air of the air conditioning and the almost imperceptible sound of computers working behind the counter. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Silent," said the manager, a robust woman with a thin mustache and round glasses. "I'm very sorry for your loss." Laura made a grimace of thanks, pretending a sadness she didn't feel. Isabel, beside her, kept a serious expression, aware that every move and word was crucial. "Thank you, Maria. I know it's late, but we need to access Daniel's account. There are some financial matters I need to resolve as soon as possible." The manager, Maria, nodded sympathetically. "Of course, Mrs. Silent. Allow me to check the account for you." As Maria went to her desk to perform the necessary checks, Laura felt a cold sweat run down her back. The bank was unusually quiet, and every second that passed seemed to stretch time like a taut rope about to snap. Isabel stared intently at the manager, as if through sheer willpower she could make everything go smoothly. When Maria returned, however, her expression had changed. Now there was a mixture of confusion and concern that made Laura feel a pang of alarm. "Mrs. Silent," said the manager slowly, "it seems the account has been blocked. I don't have authorization to allow any withdrawals at this time." Laura's heart stopped for a second before starting to beat violently in her chest. Isabel stepped forward, her face flushed. "What do you mean blocked?" she demanded, her voice rising slightly above what would be appropriate for such a quiet place. Maria raised a calm hand. "I'm sorry, but that's what the system indicates. I'll need to make some calls to clarify the situation. I'll ask you to follow me to my office so we can discuss this further." As they followed Maria to her office, Laura's mind raced 1,000 miles an hour. Something was not right. Everything had been too easy so far, too smooth, and now, just when they were about to get the money, something, or someone, had put an obstacle in their path. "Who else knows about this?" whispered Isabel as they walked. "Do you think someone beat us to it?" Laura didn't respond immediately. In her mind, Daniel's words echoed, the last words he had said before he died. "Don't think it will be that simple." For the first time since they started this plan, she felt that control was slipping from her hands. In the manager's office, Laura and Isabel sat in two uncomfortable chairs in front of the desk, while Maria made several phone calls. Her face grew tenser with each conversation. The clock on the wall showed 6:30 p.m. and the bank was officially closing for the day. The lights in the office were gradually dimming, and the silence in the rest of the building made every sound inside the room seem amplified. Isabel looked at Laura, her nervousness evident. "This shouldn't be happening," she whispered urgently. "You have to do something, Laura. Talk to her, say something." Laura nodded, but her concern only grew. This blockage was something she hadn't anticipated. Something had changed and she had no idea who or what was behind it. She leaned forward, looking at Maria, who was still on the phone. "Maria," she said, interrupting the manager's conversation, "can you give us an idea of what's going on? We're in a pretty delicate situation here, as you can imagine." Maria raised a hand, indicating to wait a moment, and continued speaking in a low tone on the phone. After a few minutes that felt like hours, she hung up and turned to Laura and Isabel with an expression of apology mixed with frustration. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Silent," she said, wiping the sweat from her forehead with a handkerchief. "There's a problem with Mr. Daniel's account. It seems it was blocked by a court order. I don't have all the details, but I'll need to get more information before proceeding with any transaction." Isabel stood up abruptly, her patience wearing thin. "This is ridiculous. How can it be blocked by a court order without anyone notifying us? This is madness. We have the will here, everything is in order." Maria looked calmly at Isabel, trying to maintain composure in the face of her reaction. "I understand your frustration, Mrs. Morales, but we need to follow the protocols. Allow me to make a few more calls. I'm sure we can resolve this." Laura felt a knot in her stomach. She couldn't stop thinking about Daniel's last words, that almost cryptic warning. Had he foreseen this? Was there something more she didn't know? She leaned back in the chair, feeling the air grow denser, heavier, as Maria made another call. Laura took the opportunity to murmur to Isabel, "We need to come up with a plan B. We can't stay here waiting forever." Isabel nodded, but her mind was also racing. The office lights flickered for a moment, and both women realized it was time to make a decision. They couldn't stay there much longer without raising suspicions. Finally, Maria hung up the phone and turned to them, looking more worried than before. "Mrs. Silent, it seems I'll need more time to clarify this situation. I'll try to expedite it tomorrow morning, but today I can't do anything more." Laura closed her eyes for a moment, struggling to contain her frustration. She had no choice but to accept the situation as it was. "All right." Isabel looked at her intently for a moment before responding. "No, Laura. We can't give up now. We have to find out what's really going on. If we leave this behind, we'll never know the truth and the money will remain out of reach. Besides, we're too involved to turn back now." Laura agreed, her determination strengthening. They had to move forward, no matter how complicated the path was. As they got into the car and prepared to leave, a sense of urgency and a touch of fear settled in their hearts. They knew the night was far from over and that the real challenge was just beginning. Every step now was crucial, and every decision could mean the difference between success and disaster. They had to stay alert, prepared for any twist that might come their way. From that moment on, the search for answers would become a matter of life or death, and Laura and Isabel were determined to face whatever lay ahead. As the car pulled away, the city continued to pulse with life around them, oblivious to the internal struggle unfolding within two women in search of a hidden truth. Laura and Isabel were ready to face the unknown, aware that the answers they sought could change their lives forever. "We've come too far to give up now. Besides, it's not just about the money. There's something more at stake, something we're not seeing. We need to find out what it is, Laura." Laura nodded slowly, aware that Isabel was right. Although the idea of giving up was tempting, It was also impossible. They had crossed a line long ago and now could only move forward, hoping to find a way out somehow. They got into the car, and Laura started the engine, driving to Isabel's apartment. As they drove, the city passed by in a blur around them. The lights of the buildings, the sounds of people on the streets, everything seemed distant, as if they were in a separate world. "What do you think awaits us tomorrow?" Isabel finally asked, breaking the silence. Laura shrugged. "I don't know, but we need to be prepared for anything. If someone else is moving the pieces behind the scenes, we have to find out who they are and what they want. Only then can we regain control." Isabel nodded, but there was a shadow of uncertainty in her gaze. She knew they were playing a dangerous game, one where every move had potentially disastrous consequences, and now more than ever, they needed to stay one step ahead. When they arrived at Isabel's building, they ascended silently, each lost in their own thoughts. Isabel took the keys and opened the door to her apartment, a small but well-kept space with modern furniture and minimalist decor. "We can use my place as our base of operations," Isabel said as she closed the door behind them. "We need a safe place where we can plan our next move." Laura nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude for Isabel being willing to press on, even when the odds seemed against them. She knew that despite their differences and the tension that sometimes existed between them, Isabel was a valuable ally, and now more than ever, they needed to work together. They sat at the dining table, a shiny glass surface reflecting the soft lights of the apartment. Isabel took her laptop and began typing furiously, searching for any additional information that could clarify the situation. "I'll try to trace any public records about the court order," Isabel said, not taking her eyes off the screen. "Maybe we can find out who requested it and why." Laura nodded, watching Isabel work. She knew they were in a desperate situation, but also knew they couldn't afford to despair. They needed to stay calm, think strategically, and find a way out. Time passed slowly as Isabel continued her search and Laura sat in silence, smoking another cigarette and thinking about the events of the past few days. Daniel's death, the will, the blocked account. Everything seemed to be part of a plan that was slipping from their grasp. Finally, Isabel stopped and looked at Laura with a serious expression. "There's not much we can do tonight. We'll need to wait until tomorrow for more information, but one thing is certain. This is just the beginning, and we have to be prepared for what comes next." Laura nodded, knowing Isabel was right. She got up from the table, stubbed out her cigarette in an ashtray, and headed to the sofa, where she let herself fall with a heavy sigh. She knew the night would be long and that the next day would bring new challenges, but she was determined to face them, no matter what it took. As she closed her eyes and tried to rest, one final image of Daniel appeared in her mind. His mysterious smile and his eyes that always seemed to know more than they let on. For a moment, she almost heard his soft voice filled with a wisdom that had always unsettled her. "Everything has a price, Laura," seemed to whisper in her mind. The next morning, a dull gray sky seemed to reflect Laura and Isabel's state of mind. They had barely slept a few hours, their minds still spinning with the revelations and new complications they faced. As the coffee bubbled in Isabel's small coffee maker, Laura sat on the sofa, mentally reviewing every detail of the past few days, trying to find a clue that could help them understand what was really happening. Isabel came out of the kitchen with 2 cups of coffee, placing one in front of Laura before sitting down in front of the laptop, which had remained open on the dining table since the night before. "I was thinking all night about what my contact told us," Isabel said, her eyes reddened from lack of sleep. "If there's someone else involved, someone not from the bank, then we need to find out who they are before they make the next move." Laura nodded as she took a sip of coffee, feeling the warmth of the liquid travel down her throat and clear some of the fog from her mind. She knew Isabel was right. The key was in discovering who had blocked the account and why. Without that information, they were working in the dark. "I think we should start with Elena's lawyer," Laura suggested, remembering the man who had read the will. "He might have more information about the will or any other documents Elena might have left. If there's anything else, maybe we can find out through him." Isabel considered the idea for a moment before nodding. "That makes sense. We could also ask him to explain how the court order was processed. Maybe there's something we can use to challenge it." Both knew it was an uncertain attempt, but at this point, any lead was better than none. They decided to call the lawyer immediately, hoping he could meet with them that same day. Isabel dialed the number and waited, drumming her fingers on the table as she listened to the ringing tone. Finally, the lawyer answered, his voice sounding surprised by the early call. "Yes, Mrs. Silent, I can meet with you later today. Say at 11, in my office? Isabel thanked the lawyer and hung up, turning to Laura. We have our meeting. We should prepare and make sure we have all our questions ready. We can't let anything slip by. Laura nodded, feeling a renewed wave of determination. It was clear the path would be difficult, but she had no intention of giving up. They went to the bathroom to get ready and prepared quickly. Though they tried to appear calm and confident, both felt the weight of uncertainty and fear of the unknown. At 11 sharp, they arrived at the lawyer's office, an old building in the heart of Mexico City, with high ceilings and dark wooden walls that gave the place an air of antiquity and seriousness. The lawyer, a man in his 60s with gray hair and a sharp gaze, greeted them at the door of his office. Please come in, he said, indicating for them to sit in front of his desk. How can I help you today? Laura took the lead, briefly explaining their situation and the urgent need to access Elena's account. We know there's an order blocking the account, she said, but we don't understand why or who requested it. We need to know if there's anything in the will or any other documents that might help us unlock access. The lawyer listened attentively, his expression neutral, but Laura could see he was weighing each word. Finally, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. I understand your concern, Mrs. Silent, but I must say that Elena's will was very clear. Furthermore, any judicial alteration or blockage would not have been presented without a valid reason. If the account was blocked, there must be solid grounds for it. Isabel, unable to contain her frustration, leaned forward. We already know that. What we want to know is if you have any idea why this was done. Was there anything in the will that could have triggered such an order? The lawyer shook his head slowly. No, the will does not mention any clause that could result in a judicial blockage. However, it is possible that Elena took additional precautions that she did not directly inform me about. She was a very cautious woman, as you know. Laura felt a pang of frustration. This meeting was not going as she had hoped. However, she decided to change tactics. What about any other documents? Anything other than the main will? Is it possible she left specific instructions with you or someone else? The lawyer seemed to ponder the question for a moment before responding. Elena was very meticulous with her legal matters. It's possible she left letters or specific instructions, but if she did, they were not with me. They might be elsewhere, perhaps at the bank, in her safety deposit box. The mention of the safety deposit box made Laura and Isabel exchange glances. They hadn't thought of that before. Elena always had secrets, little precautions that often went unnoticed until it was too late. Can you help us access that safety deposit box? Laura asked, trying not to seem too anxious. The lawyer considered the request for a moment. I could do that, but it will require permission from the bank. And given the current situation, it might be complicated. If the account is blocked, it's likely the safety deposit box is as well, or at least its access is restricted. Isabel frowned. So we're stuck in a loop. We can't access the account or the safety deposit box without someone granting us permission, and it seems no one is willing to do that. The lawyer nodded slowly. It's a difficult situation, but there might be another option. You could try requesting a judicial review of the blocking order. If you can demonstrate that there are mitigating circumstances or that the order was issued without proper cause, it could be lifted. Laura and Isabel looked at each other, evaluating the suggestion. It wasn't an easy path, but at least it was something. Laura thanked the lawyer for his time and stood up, knowing they needed to move forward. Thank you for your help. We'll do what we can to resolve this. The lawyer wished them luck as they left his office. Laura couldn't shake the feeling that they were getting closer to an uncomfortable truth, one that could change everything they thought they knew about Elena and her fortune. As they stepped out onto the street, the daylight felt overwhelming after the dimness of the office. Isabel looked at Laura, her expression a mix of determination and uncertainty. What do you think? Laura asked. Isabel took a deep breath, letting the fresh air clear her mind. I think we need to follow every lead we have. If that means going to court, then that's what we'll do. But first, we need more information. We can't go in blind. Laura nodded, knowing Isabel was right. As they walked toward the car, Isabel's phone rang suddenly. She looked at the screen and saw an unknown number but decided to answer anyway. Hello. The voice on the other end was soft, almost whispering. Is this Mrs. Laura Silent? Isabel frowned, exchanging a glance with Laura. Yes, it is. Who is speaking? There was a brief pause before the voice continued. I have information about the court order blocking Elena's account. If you want to know more, you'll need to meet me this afternoon at 5 at El Pendulo Cafe in Polanco. And come alone. Before Isabel could respond, the call was abruptly cut off. She looked at Laura, her eyes filled with confusion and curiosity. Who was that? Laura asked. Isabel put her phone away, a tense expression appearing on her lips. I don't know, but it looks like someone is either willing to help us or play games with us. Laura raised an eyebrow, intrigued but also cautious. Are you sure it's a good idea? It could be a trap. Isabel nodded slowly. It might be, but we don't have many options. Besides, if someone has information about the court order, we need to find out what it is. Laura sighed, knowing Isabel was right. They were at an impasse, and every step they took was moving them further from apparent safety, but they had no other choice. They had to move forward. At 5 p.m., they arrived at El Pendulo Cafe, a place known for its bohemian atmosphere and extensive book collection. As they entered, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled their senses, offering a brief solace amid the chaos of recent days. They sat at a table near the window, where they could observe anyone who came in. It was a few minutes before a figure approached them. It was a middle-aged man with a well-groomed beard and penetrating eyes. He sat down without being invited and watched them with an enigmatic smile. "Thank you for coming," he said in a low voice, glancing around as if afraid of being overheard. "We don't have much time, so I'll get straight to the point. The court order was requested by someone very close to Elena, someone who knew exactly what they were doing." Isabel leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the man. "Who and why?" The man shook his head. "I can't say more. I only know that there's more at stake than it seems. Elena had secrets, and many of them are coming to light now. You need to be careful. Not everyone who seems like an ally truly is." Laura exchanged a look with Isabel, feeling the ground beneath them shift a little more with each word from the man. "What should we do?" Laura finally asked. The man stood up, giving them one last look. "Keep searching, but remember, sometimes the answers you seek are not the ones you want to find." And with that, he left, leaving them with more questions than answers. Laura and Isabel sat in silence, the noise of the cafe around them muffled by the gravity of what they had just heard. Finally, Laura broke the silence. "We need to find out who else knew about the court order. If it was someone close to Elena, we might be closer to the truth than we think." Laura nodded, feeling a mix of fear and determination. She knew the truth was close, but also that every step toward it brought them closer to unknown danger. As they paid the bill and left the cafe, they couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, followed by invisible shadows that moved with each of their steps. With every step they took, the mystery of Elena's fortune grew deeper, and the line between friends and foes grew blurrier. But one thing was clear: there was no turning back. Laura and Isabel stood in front of El Pendulo Cafe for a moment, watching the mysterious man disappear into the crowd filling the streets. As the late afternoon approached, the sun began to set, casting long shadows that made everything seem darker and more uncertain. The meeting had left more questions than answers, but it also confirmed something crucial. They were not alone in their search. There were other players in this game, people who knew more than they did. "We need to be more careful from now on," Juan said, finally breaking the heavy silence that surrounded them. "If there are people watching us, like that man said, we might never be able to uncover them completely." Lucas pondered this. Elena was always a woman of many layers, each more complicated than the last. She was meticulous, calculating, but also passionate about protecting what was hers. If she really prepared a plan for her death, then we are dealing with someone who planned for every possible scenario. "First, we need to find out who else was close to Elena in the last few days," suggested Juan, his voice low but determined. "Someone must have seen something or know something. Something. Maybe a close friend, someone she trusted enough to reveal her true intentions." Lucas thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. "There is one person who might know more: Clara, her personal assistant. She was with Elena almost every day over the last few years. If anyone knew Elena's secrets, it would be her." Juan felt a spark of hope. It was a solid and clear lead. Clara might have valuable information that could help them unravel this increasingly tangled mess. "Do you know where we can find her?" asked Lucas. She always has lunch at the park near the main fountain. We can try talking to her there. Maybe she'll be willing to help us, especially if we convince her that we're trying to do the right thing," replied Juan. Determined to follow this new lead, Juan and Lucas headed to Parque Mexico. As they walked, their minds were filled with thoughts about what Clara might reveal. The possibility of getting clear answers gave them a renewed sense of purpose, despite the growing darkness around them. They felt motivated by the prospect of finally making progress in their search. They arrived at the park just in time to see Clara sitting on a bench with a book in hand. She seemed calm, oblivious to the turmoil that was consuming Juan and Lucas. The two approached cautiously, not wanting to startle her or alert her to their intentions. "Clara," called Lucas softly as they approached. "Can we speak with you for a moment?" Clara looked up from her book, surprised to see them there. Her eyes showed a mix of curiosity and caution. She slowly closed the book and nodded, indicating the space next to her on the bench. "Of course, Lucas. What's going on? I wasn't expecting to see you here." Juan sat down next to Clara while Lucas remained standing, scanning the surroundings. "We know this may seem strange," Juan began, "but we need your help. There are many things about Elena's death that we don't understand, and it seems someone is trying to prevent us from uncovering the truth." Clara frowned, clearly intrigued. "What kind of things?" "Elena was very reserved, even with me, but I always saw her as a fair woman." "What do you believe we don't know?" Lucas intervened, aware that they needed to be cautious with their words. "We're not sure, but it seems there's more at stake than just her fortune. Her account was blocked by a court order and we don't know why. We believe she might have left specific instructions or secrets that you might know about." Clara appeared uncertain. One could see she was carefully considering what to say. Finally, she spoke in a lower tone, as if fearing she might be overheard. "Elena always said that trust was something that had to be earned, not given easily. She had her secrets, but she also had her reasons. I don't know exactly what arrangements she might have made, but I know she had a notebook, one in which she wrote down all her ideas, her most intimate thoughts. She took it with her, even at home." Juan and Lucas exchanged meaningful glances. Elena's notebook could be the key they were looking for. If it contained information about her plans or any precautions she had taken, it might give them the answers they needed. "Do you know where that notebook might be now?" Juan asked urgently. Clara shook her head slowly. "I'm not sure. When she died, many of her personal effects were sent to her house in Cuernavaca, the one she used for retreats. It might be there, but I can't promise anything." Lucas leaned forward. "Thank you, Clara. This is more than we had before. We'll check the Cuernavaca house and see if we find anything." Clara nodded, though a shadow of concern crossed her face. "Just be careful. I don't know what you might find there, but if Elena truly had secrets, she might have taken steps to protect them." Juan smiled faintly, grateful for her warning. "We'll keep that in mind. Thank you for trusting us, Clara." Clara nodded one last time before getting up and saying goodbye, leaving Juan and Lucas with a new mission. The idea of revisiting the Cuernavaca house gave them a renewed focus, a new hope that they might still untangle the complex web Elena had left after her death. As they walked back to the car, Lucas looked at Juan with a thoughtful expression. "Do you think we should go today?" he asked, clearly eager to take advantage of the momentum they had gained. Juan nodded. "Yes, the sooner we do it, the better. We don't know how many more surprises might be in store and we need answers as soon as possible." Determined, they headed toward the road that would take them to Cuernavaca. The trip was quiet, but the tension in the air was palpable. Both knew they were entering unknown territory and that each step could bring them closer to the truth or directly into a trap. Upon arriving at Elena's house in Cuernavaca, a sense of nostalgia overwhelmed them. They had visited this house many times with Elena, enjoying the serenity it offered away from the bustle of Mexico City. But now the house seemed different, almost as if it were waiting to reveal its secrets. As they approached the front door, they noticed that the lock was intact, which was an encouraging sign. Lucas took the key Clara had given them and turned it in the lock. The door opened with a soft creak, revealing the dark and silent interior of the house. They entered cautiously, letting their eyes adjust to the dimness. The house was exactly as Juan remembered, with the furniture covered in dust and the curtains drawn, blocking out the sunlight. They moved slowly, searching for any sign of the notebook or something that might indicate where Elena could have hidden her secrets. Let's check the office first, Juan suggested in a low voice, recalling the small studio Elena used for writing. Lucas nodded and followed him down the hall to the office. Upon entering, they turned on the light, revealing a small, orderly room with a sturdy wooden desk and shelves full of books. Juan approached the desk and began searching through the drawers, looking for anything that might seem relevant. Meanwhile, Lucas examined the shelves, running his fingers along the spines of the books, looking for anything out of place. After a few minutes of fruitless searching, Lucas noticed a book that seemed slightly out of alignment with the others. He pulled it gently and, to his surprise, discovered a hidden compartment behind the books. "Juan, come here. I think I found something," Lucas said. Juan quickly approached as Lucas retrieved a small leather notebook from the hidden compartment. Their hearts raced as they looked at each other, knowing they might have found the key to solving the mystery. They opened the notebook with trembling hands, carefully turning the pages. The notebook was filled with Elena's notes, some about her daily thoughts, others about her financial concerns, and finally, a section that seemed to contain detailed instructions about what should happen in the event of her death. As they read the pages, Juan and Lucas realized that Elena had anticipated almost everything that had happened. She had left precise instructions to block her account and protect her fortune from any premature withdrawal attempts. Additionally, she had indicated a trusted contact, a name unknown to them, but that could be the final piece of the puzzle. "We need to find this person," Juan said firmly. She knew exactly what she was doing and who should handle her affairs. "If we find this person, we might finally understand what's going on." Lucas nodded, closing the notebook with a determined expression. "So let's not waste any more time. Let's find this person and uncover the truth once and for all." With the notebook in hand and a new objective in mind, they left the house, feeling a step closer to discovering all the secrets Elena had left behind. They knew they had found an important piece, something that might finally unravel the mystery of Elena's fortune and the legal block on her account. But they also knew that every answer seemed to bring more questions and that they were delving deeper into a labyrinth of secrets. The road wound through the hills, and the afternoon sun cast long shadows over the asphalt. Juan remained silent, his thoughts absorbed by what they had read in the notebook. Elena's instructions were clear, but there was something more, a hint that she had anticipated every move, every decision they would make. It was as if she had planned every detail to lead them to this crossroads. Lucas, at the wheel, kept his eyes on the road, but his mind was occupied as well. He couldn't help but wonder if this had all been an elaborate game by Elena, a final test to gauge their loyalty and determination. The idea gave him chills, but it also drove him forward. They couldn't stop now, they were too close to the truth. "What do you think we'll do when we find this person?" Juan asked, breaking the silence that had fallen between them. "Do you think they'll give us the answers we need?" Lucas frowned slightly, his eyes still on the road. "I hope so. But Elena was never predictable. She always had her reasons and plans, so we need to be prepared for anything. We have to approach this person carefully, find out exactly what Elena wanted us to know." Juan nodded, his mind racing through the possibilities. Elena's final instructions had been meticulous, but the contact she had mentioned was a complete mystery. They had no idea who this person was or where they might be found. The next few hours were filled with a sense of urgency and anticipation. They drove through picturesque landscapes, their thoughts focused on the task ahead. As they approached the destination, they knew they were about to enter a new chapter in their search for the truth. They had come a long way from their first meeting with Elena, and every step had brought them closer to understanding her final wishes and the secrets she had left behind. Finally, they reached the town where the contact was supposed to be. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow over the streets as they began their search. The clues from the notebook had pointed them to a small, unassuming office in the town center. As they approached, they could feel the weight of the moment, knowing that this could be the turning point in their quest for answers. They parked the car and walked towards the office, their minds filled with anticipation and apprehension. Each step seemed to echo the gravity of the situation. They exchanged determined glances, ready to face whatever awaited them. As they reached the office door, they took a deep breath and prepared to uncover the final pieces of Elena's intricate puzzle. Lucas knocked softly on the door, and after a moment, it creaked open, revealing a woman in her late 40s with a kind but tired expression. She looked at them with curiosity and a hint of recognition. "Yes, can I help you?" she asked. Juan stepped forward, holding out the notebook for her to see. We're here about Elena's estate. We've been trying to find out more about her final wishes, and we were directed to you." The woman's eyes widened slightly as she took in the notebook. After a moment of silence, she nodded and gestured for them to come inside. "Please, come in. I'm Marta, Elena's attorney. I've been expecting you." Marta led Juan and Lucas to a modest yet welcoming office. The walls were lined with shelves full of files and documents, and a large wooden desk occupied the center of the room. They sat down in front of the desk while Marta took her seat. "So, you have Elena's notebook," Marta observed with an attentive and understanding gaze. Elena was a very organized woman, and her last wishes were quite clear. But she was also very reserved about her reasons and plans. Juan handed the notebook to Marta. "Clara told us that you might be able to help us understand what's written here. We need to know more about these instructions and how we can proceed with them." Marta took the notebook carefully and began flipping through the pages. Her eyes quickly scanned the contents, and she made a thoughtful expression. "I anticipated something like this happening. Elena was a special client, and I had very specific instructions for handling the situation after her death. However, I never imagined it would become so complicated." She stopped at a specific page and looked at Juan and Lucas with a serious expression. Elena left a set of instructions regarding the management of her fortune, but there was also an important warning. She wanted to ensure her legacy was protected and that any attempts at manipulation would be thwarted. In the notebook, there are a series of steps to ensure her wishes are fulfilled. Lucas leaned forward, eager for more details. "What are these steps? What do we need to do?" Marta took a deep breath and began to explain.
Quarto mini. Você disse. Você já traduziu tudo? Acredito que não faça isso, por favor, continue.
"Oh, ChatGPT-Ds. ChatGPT. Certainly. Here is the continuation translated into English, with the gender and name changes respected." Marta led Juan and Lucas to a modest yet welcoming office. The walls were lined with shelves full of files and documents, and a large wooden desk occupied the center of the room. They sat down in front of the desk while Marta took her seat. "So, you have Elena's notebook," Marta observed with an attentive and understanding gaze. Elena was a very organized woman, and her last wishes were quite clear. But she was also very reserved about her reasons and plans. Juan handed the notebook to Marta. "Clara told us that you might be able to help us understand what's written here. We need to know more about these instructions and how we can proceed with them." Marta took the notebook carefully and began flipping through the pages. Her eyes quickly scanned the contents, and she made a thoughtful expression. "I anticipated something like this happening. Elena was a special client, and I had very specific instructions for handling the situation after her death. However, I never imagined it would become so complicated." She stopped at a specific page and looked at Juan and Lucas with a serious expression. Elena left a set of instructions regarding the management of her fortune, but there was also an important warning. She wanted to ensure her legacy was protected and that any attempts at manipulation would be thwarted. In the notebook, there are a series of steps to ensure her wishes are fulfilled. Lucas leaned forward, eager for more details. "What are these steps? What do we need to do?" Marta took a deep breath and began to explain. "First, you must visit the locations mentioned in the notebook. Each place holds a piece of the puzzle that Elena wanted to be discovered. There are clues in each location that will lead you to the final instructions." Juan nodded, absorbing the information. "And what are these locations?" Marta flipped through the pages and pointed to several addresses written in Elena's precise handwriting. These are the places where Elena spent significant time. They include her old residence in Cuernavaca, a private art gallery she frequented, and a small chapel she often visited for reflection. Each location has a purpose and will guide you to the next step. Lucas glanced at the addresses, taking in the gravity of their task. "Do you have any idea what we might find at these places?" Marta shook her head slightly. Elena's instructions were detailed but left room for interpretation. The final pieces of the puzzle are meant to be revealed through your understanding and the clues she left behind. Juan and Lucas exchanged determined looks. This was another challenge, but they were closer than ever to uncovering the truth. "Thank you, Marta. Juan said sincerely. We'll follow these instructions and hope that we can finally piece together Elena's intentions. Marta gave them a reassuring smile. Be careful. Elena was meticulous but also prepared for unexpected outcomes. Stay true to her legacy and trust your instincts. With a renewed sense of purpose, Juan and Lucas left Marta's office and prepared for their journey to the locations mentioned in the notebook. They knew the road ahead was filled with uncertainty, but they were driven by the desire to honor Elena's memory and complete her final wishes. As they drove toward Cuernavaca, their minds raced with the possibilities of what they might find. Each location held the promise of new revelations, and they were determined to uncover every secret Elena had left behind. Arriving at the residence in Cuernavaca, they were greeted by the familiar surroundings of Elena's retreat. The place was serene, a stark contrast to the chaotic journey they had undertaken. They started their search in the garden, following the clues from the notebook. Among the blooming flowers and well-kept paths, they discovered a hidden compartment beneath a stone bench. Inside, they found a box containing old photographs, letters, and another set of instructions. The letters provided insight into Elena's personal reflections and her vision for the future. Each piece revealed more about her character and the reasons behind her decisions. With each discovery, Juan and Lucas felt a deeper connection to Elena's legacy. They followed the clues to the art gallery and the chapel, each location adding layers to their understanding of her plans. In the chapel, they found a final letter addressed to them, providing the ultimate guidance and closure. In the end, Elena's legacy was not just about her fortune, but about the impact she wanted to make on the world. The instructions led Juan and Lucas to a greater purpose, reminding them that true wealth lay in the values they upheld and the positive changes they could bring about. As they concluded their journey, Juan and Lucas felt a profound sense of fulfillment. They had honored Elena's memory and embraced her final wishes. With renewed determination, they faced the future, ready to make a difference and carry forward the lessons learned from their remarkable journey. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through Elena's story. We hope that the twists and turns, the suspense, and the ultimate revelation have captivated you as much as they did us. If you enjoyed this story and believe it has touched your heart, we invite you to share it with your friends and family. Your support helps us continue to bring more compelling and emotional tales to life. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our future stories. Share this video on your social media, and let's spread the word together. We'd love to hear your thoughts and see your reactions, so please leave a comment below. Thank you for being part of our community. We look forward to bringing you more exciting stories and unforgettable experiences. Until next time.